Convicted of a crime they didn't commit, and in a hell they could never survive.
That's something you don't hear every day.
Exactly.
As bad as things are in the barracks, they're brutal down in the mines.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Cap Shack here. Today, we are talking about Star Citizen and the prison gameplay loop. What's it going to be like to be a criminal, get caught by law enforcement or a bounty hunter,
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
and eventually, maybe, escape.
Do you want to change your bullshit story, sir?
He might have got out.
First up, here's a list of all the crimes that the developers of Star Citizen had to come up with because players exist.
These are just some of the laws we've had to implement to try and rein you guys in.
No, these are not achievements. People were way too excited to see this list. Now remember, prison time is not just there to punish the players. It's great for the player who just got PK'd or player killed if you haven't played any MMOs in the last 20 years. But it's great to see somebody get locked up or thrown away the key when they have just recently ganked you, or maybe them and their buddies have ganked you. It just feels good to know that the game has your back. But really, having a gameplay prison loop is about a gameplay loop. It's about having fun and offering a new way of playing the game and seeing the game. Now, there's a few games that have actually done this kind of criminal system. Ultima Online talked about having it, but never went full-fledged with it. They just ended up having a flag system. ArcAge actually went a bit further than this. They do have, because they've got a new version now, they have full trials where you'd have to go up in front of a jury and a judge, and the jury would decide whether or not you would be sent to prison and how much time you would get, and then you'd be sent off to prison with a small chance for a escape loop. I personally found this awesome. I love the idea, and the entire server could listen to the chat of the jury in the bottom left-hand corner on your global chat, which it was a neat system. So there's a private company that runs the Star Citizen prisons. Now, this isn't something that's completely unheard of. In the United States, it's like 9% of our prisons are actually run by companies. Good or bad, I'm not gonna get into the politics of it, but Klesher Rehabilitation Facilities, a private corrections provider that's committed to providing safe, secure rehab facilities for local planets. Its fully automated corrections sites include housing, security, and work release opportunities to allow guests, and that's a quote, guests to be productive while paying their debt to society. In reality, these inmates are paying off their debts by being thrown into mines and mining in hazardous environments that no proper miner would want to go into. They're woefully under-equipped and under-prepared for this. The system is fully automated. The guards are just unmanned turrets that are set at kill or not kill. The commissary is literally just vending machines. And rehab is just motivational announcements over loudspeaker. Does this remind you of anything?
Convicted of a crime they didn't commit.
Nobody ever gets out of prison on Equitiri.
I haven't had a minute to myself since I got here. You're jammed 8 to a room, time sharing your bunks. Altor doesn't care if we live or die.
You gotta get sent to a slam where they tell you you'll never see daylight again.
The big Star Citizen show this past year had a highlight feature, weather. Freezing temperatures that started to kill the player as he left the shelter of the research base trying to escape with stolen data chip. Now we're talking about a moon of Aberdeen. It has a similar atmosphere to Venus, temperatures upwards of 400 Celsius, making escape incredibly difficult as the player tries to probably get deep fried. So the basic gameplay loop works like this. If the player dies near a bounty hunter or a law enforcement officer, which a bounty hunter is, or if the player surrenders to one of these factions, having committed a large enough crime, or enough crimes worthy of prison time, then the player will awaken aboard a ship transport that just has landed at a prison. On board will be a number of players who have been arrested at the same time, so you're probably not alone. Each player is given their own cell that can be used to store items persistently that the players gather from being inside the prison in the mine. Your sentence isn't time directly, it's actually a resource called merits. This is a resource that slowly generates over time. An example that the developer gave was maybe 1 minute a merit, and if you have a 40 merit sentence, it's gonna be 40 minutes. But you can make merits through gameplay. Now, this is probably going to be, and they mentioned this in one of the Q&A sessions, this is probably going to be in-game time, meaning you can't just log out and walk away. You actually have to spend the time playing. Meaning, and the reason they're doing this is so they can keep these times very small. 40 minutes is probably a pretty hefty sentence, meaning you've probably pirated a lot of poor bastards in their freelancers to get that sentence. But who knows? We don't know the exact time frames yet. But But you can work off your prison time through making merits. The company running the prison actually wants to make money off of you and off of your labor. So getting out and mining let you work off your sentence, maybe cutting the time down even by half. The devs mentioned the ability to spend merits to buy upgrades, which will allow you to generate merits faster, like more efficient mining tools, better general equipment, or picking up a larger oxygen tank, which lets you go deeper into the mines. There's a few benefits to this. Going all the way down into the mines may get you outside of the jamming field for the communications if you're only using in-game comms. It's mentioned that oxygen is going to be used as a method of control by the prison. New inmates will have very small tanks, making the possibility of escape way harder and making veteran prisoners have much more capability than the newcomers. You won't be able to get very far down into the mines as you have to constantly stop and refill your tanks. And those refill points could be a source of competition. I'm not quite sure how they're planning to use that, it was just mentioned briefly. Most important out of all that though is escape gameplay, the potential for escape. Remember, Star Citizen is going for that ultimate science fiction universe, allowing players to have all these crazy stories, or play the multitude of roles that we've seen on the big screen, from starship captains to apparently Chronicles of Riddick. I love this, and I hope we'll see in-game the hardened badasses with items you can only get from the worst prisons in the galaxy, because with this design, we can see multiple levels of prison difficulty. From the low-key automated mood base of Aberdeen to a supermax prison on the edge of known space that could take players a great deal of time and effort and planning to break out of. Talk about bragging rights. That kind of gameplay will also make taking down those high-end, well-known criminals feel all the more satisfying when you know they're gonna go to the supermax because they've pirated or murdered so many innocent players. So let's talk about merits in prison economy, the game inside the game. Honestly, that's a great way to describe Star Citizen in general. Trading merits is something of a planned feature, allowing players to create production lines to maximize the merit gain, turning the mining efforts into a cooperative experience, at least if the players want to. Some guys mining, others running to turn in the ore to the hoppers. Gambling has been mentioned, and I'm hoping we see gambling actually take off in Star Citizen, but it was mentioned in this instance specifically for the new melee combat that's coming up in 3.8. You'll be able to take bets on who's going to get knocked out. It was even mentioned to have NPCs you might be able to box up against or bet on, all betting your time in prison. So if you're down for a fist fight, could be a great way to generate some merits, or a great way of losing them. They didn't mention it, but I'm wondering if you can just bribe other prisoners with credits to buy up their merits to get out early. Say you're an incredibly rich player, you've made a lot of money, you run the head of a crime organization, and you're willing to just bribe everyone in the prison to buy their merits off them to get out early. If you got the cash, that would be a great credit sink, and a wonderful way of older players getting out of prison early while still bolstering up those new players that have just come in and could really use those credits to pay off that next fuel charge to keep their ship in the air. So there were a few other ways mentioned to generate merits. Missions in this system, such as being the muscle for an NPC or protecting a VIP, collecting fungus to save on food bills for the Klesher Corporation, assassination missions, if you're not caught by the automated system, dumping somebody's body down a hole, was also mentioned. Hunting bounties inside the prison. Hunting bounties inside the prison to take down players who've committed crimes while being locked up.
Locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
If you do keep committing crimes, you'll get flagged as a violent offender. That way other players know to just kind of ignore you and stay away from you. Committing a crime will get your amount of merits actually dropped, the ones you've collected so far, meaning it's going to increase your stay at the Hotel Aberdeen, which is what we should totally call it from now on. If you keep being a jerk, eventually the gear inside the prison is going to completely ignore you, and if you really continue to be a jerk, the auto turrets will end you. And death means, well, respawning in your prison cell and having lost all the items that are on you onto the ground. So let's talk about escape, probably the most interesting aspect of this entire thing. Oxygen is the limiting factor. Knowing your escape route will be key to save time from traveling from one oxygen refill point to the next. Having a buddy ready to get you off-world will be helpful. Though it was mentioned that stealing a vehicle from the prison could be possible. Now, I love the idea of players coming up with all kinds of ridiculous ways to escape a prison. Even the demo video we saw a player jumping out into what looked like a large air vent onto a Cutlass Black and then flying off.
Search of every gas station, residence, warehouse, farmhouse, hen house, outhouse, or doghouse in that area.
If you manage to escape, there's still one more issue. Getting arrested means that you've been chipped. You're low-jacked. That means bounty hunters will know exactly where you are, meaning that some bounty hunters could make it their sole focus in the game to hunt down escapees and bring them to justice. Like the system that's currently in the live version of the game right now, the would-be criminal masterminds will be able to hack the law enforcement database on some sites and delete their criminal records, which is a gameplay loop in and of itself, so it kind of leads into that. But it's gonna take time. A few bits that were mentioned, the ability to surrender. So if you're, say, an ArcCorp and you cause some trouble and the local guards are rushing up to you, they will constantly ask you to surrender. You can use the hands up emote or lay down potentially, and there you've surrendered. Chances are it's gonna save you in some of the merits you're gonna need to get out of the prison system. I will reiterate, it was mentioned that it's in-game time and not just log out, walk away from your PC for a while, come back and you're free to go. Some people are gonna love this and some people are gonna hate it. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Let me know in the comments section. One of the features that was just briefly mentioned was the deputizing system, meaning that some players are gonna be able to join a faction as a system defense unit. And they're gonna be able to go around and scan players for any criminal stats they may have and be able to bring them to justice, or scan their ships and look for any kind of contraband. Now, it was mentioned very offhandedly that this might come in 3.8, but I'm not quite sure, so don't quote me on that. But it's a neat idea that we'll be able to run around as deputized law enforcement, scanning players to see if they've been up to no good. In the demo video that we saw, we didn't see a lot of resistance from the prison when the Cutlass came into its airspace. This is not going to be the case, as the prisons will have their own defense systems, potentially anti-air or anti-starship missiles were mentioned. It'll be interesting to see what kind of cooperation will be required for the people on the inside and the people on the outside to actually manage to escape these prisons. I hope it's a varying degree of prisons and difficulty for escape. The lowest in prisons won't have major defenses on the outside. There's no reason to. Most of them will probably be blue-collar crimes, meaning escape will be easy, but it could increase your crime rating. You could have a whole day of gaming just running from the bounty hunters and the security forces for the sector, and that sounds like a freaking blast. Other games have tried to do a bounty hunting system, but it's never been that great. EVE Online's one is basically non-existent. It doesn't really work in the way that you think it would. But let me know what you guys are excited for. I think this is opening up a whole new area for bounty hunting, and as we all know,
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.